You know what's faster than a snail? Literally everything. But back in 2013, DreamWorks decided that a snail could be fast enough to star in a summer blockbuster, and be voiced by Ryan Reynolds. Turbo. And like every animated movie from the early 2010s, Turbo didn't just come with a toy line, a Netflix spin-off and a fast food tie-in, it also came with a licensed video game. Well, actually it came with several. Today we're talking about the Nintendo DS version of Turbo Super Stunt Squad, the game that somehow manages to make racing snails slower than real ones. So welcome to the Worst Racing Games, the series where you guys suggest different racing games that you think are terrible, and then I play them, review them, and rank them. So after last week's absolutely horrendous monochrome racing for the PSP, the wheel has given us Turbo Super Stunt Squad for the Nintendo DS. I'm thinking this isn't going to be much better, guys, I'm not going to lie. So before we get into the gameplay, I'm going to start off with a little bit of history about the game and the timing of its release. By 2013, the DS was basically on life support. The shovelware flood was at full speed. The 3DS had already been out for 2 years at this point, and publishers like D3 and developers like Taurus Games were cranking out licensed games faster than Turbo himself could ever dream of moving at. It wasn't uncommon to see the same title released across multiple platforms, Wii, 3DS, Xbox 360, all with wildly different versions. And that's the case here. So the Wii, 3DS and DS ports of Turbo Super Stunt Squad were developed by Taurus Games, who are notorious for cranking out licensed titles for different properties such as Rise of the Guardians, Spider-Man, and Scooby-Doo. The game was also released on Wii U, PS3 and Xbox 360, and this was developed by Monkey Bar Games and was a different game entirely. So when you first boot up the game, you're greeted by the title screen being read out loud by Snoop Dogg.
Turbo! Super Stunt Squad, baby! Coming at you.
That's it. No story, no intro, just Snoop Dogg saying the game's title. Because that's right, Snoop Dogg reprises his role from the film, and he's one of only 2 voice actors to do so, alongside Ben Schwartz, who you may know as the movie Sonic the Hedgehog. Anyway, aside from this one voice line, it's just a static logo and the word START, which is already a red flag. There's basically zero effort to connect the game to its source material. I mean, hey, I'm pretty sure even the B-movie game managed to shove in a few cutscenes, but Turbo? He gets a JPEG image. The menus look like something straight out of a Flash game. There's no flair, no music that makes you feel like you're in a racing world, just generic looping background noise. And there's no story mode either, so if you haven't seen the film, and for some reason decided to buy this game, good luck understanding why these snails are drifting through taco restaurants. Now before we go any further, if you're a fan of racing games, or in this case not so great racing games, then why not hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications to stay up to date with the Worst Racing Games series. And whilst you're at it, if you want to support this series or the channel further, then please check out my Patreon using the link in the description below. Over on Patreon you can get access to some cool goodies like early access to videos and your name in the credits of every single release. It would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, enough plugging the channel, let's go back to some Turbo Super Stunt Squad. So how does Turbo actually play? In theory, it's a simple kart racer. You pick a snail, pick one of 3 cups, and race through a handful of tracks. You accelerate, you brake, you try to drift around corners. It's pretty standard stuff. But the moment you try to turn, you realize that something is deeply, deeply wrong. The controls feel like you're steering through super glue, which is ironic because the whole point of this game is to feel fast. Drifting feels uncontrollable when it actually decides to work, and it's almost impossible to make tight turns without either flying off the track or just hitting into the corner. And don't worry, no, the game knows you're going to do this. That's why the devs decided to add a dedicated respawn button. That's not a feature of good design, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a panic button. Even worse though, the physics make no sense. Sometimes you'll clip through walls, Other times you'll just fall into the void for no reason. It's like the game's gravity system forgot it was supposed to be consistent. This is the kind of game where half your race time is spent recovering from the last mistake the game made for you. Now, visually, this game is rough. Even for a late DS game, this looks quite bad. The textures are flat, the colours are muddy, and the environments all blend together. When the frame rate tanks, and it will, a lot, it's usually because more than two things are happening on screen at once. That's right, the DS can handle full Mario Kart DS matches at a solid frame rate, but Turbo Super Stunt Squad drops frames like it's allergic to movement, and snails. And I would be willing to bet money that the 3DS version is exactly the same, except with a 3D slider that probably doesn't even really work for this game. Yikes. So let's talk about the racers. You get a small handful of snails from the movie, but they all control the same. There's no difference in speed, weight, or handling, just different shells that claim to affect those stats. Although having tried pretty much every shell that Turbo has, it made no difference whatsoever. And if you were hoping for character banter or personality, prepare for disappointment. The only flavour these snails have comes from one-liners that repeat every 10 or so seconds, and half the time they barely even make sense to what's going on.
Not bad, Garden Snail. Turbo, that is hot.
After about 2 races, if that, you'll wish you could mute them, but unfortunately, that's not an option. Here's where the title becomes false advertising though. Super Stunt Squad, there are exactly 4 stunts. When you go off a ramp, you press a direction on the D-pad, and that's it. Each direction gives you a different item: a tomato to grow in size, taco shells for defense, a pepper shaker for offense, and a boost. There are no combos, no timing system, no risk or reward, just one press and 2 possible results. One where you land the trick, and one where the game bugs out and sends you flying.
Yeah! Well, alright!
Now, to be honest, there's absolutely no point using any of the other items in this game except the boost. The tomato allows you to break through parts of the environment that have tomato symbols on them, the taco shells didn't work for me once as no one ever attacked me anyway, and the pepper shaker seemingly does nothing. So the boost is your best option, just fly off in front and keep the lead. It's the easiest way to play the game. And no matter which snail you pick from, they all perform the exact same 4 stunts. It's basically a power-up system disguised as a stunt feature. I mean, the damn banana peels from Mario Kart feel more dynamic than the entire stunt and item mechanic in this game. It's just ridiculous. The one shining glimmer of creativity here though, is the track design. They're set in everyday environments, a kitchen, a restaurant, a back garden, but scaled up to make the snails feel tiny. On paper, that's quite clever. Racing across a taco counter or up the wall of a diner does sound quite fun. But in execution, everything looks exactly the same. The camera angle doesn't help at all, the environments lack any detail, and it's hard to tell what's the track and what's background. Genuinely, some of these tracks are so poorly designed, I got confused about where I was supposed to go. Even when the concept does shine through briefly, the performance and the visuals just drag it right back down. So the game has a measly 3 cups to offer, and some extras like time trials, and when you complete those 3 cups, a mirror mode, where you can play the same awful tracks, but this time in reverse. And that's it, really. There's no online multiplayer, no local play, not even download play, which for a kart racer on the DS, just feels borderline criminal. There are a few unlockable shells, as I mentioned, for each racer that slightly tweak handling, but they're hardly worth the effort, because those supposed tweaks have like no impact on the gameplay whatsoever. So once you've seen all 3 cups, you've basically experienced the entire game. And by the way, you can complete those 3 cups in less than an hour. If you start this game at the same time as watching the Turbo film, you will literally finish the game before the film ends. That is absolutely criminal. To be fair, Turbo Super Stunt Squad wasn't just on DS. The console versions, such as the 360 and PS3, as I said, are completely different games. More like skate park stunt games than racers. And while they weren't good either, at least they tried to do something distinct. The DS version though, it's like the team got halfway through building a Mario Kart clone, and just went, that'll do, and just called it a day. It's a time capsule of an era when every animated film had to have a game, no matter the quality or context. Now, in terms of critical response, none of the tourist developed versions of this game have enough reviews to generate a Metacritic score, but the 3DS version, which is the same as the DS version, has 3 different reviews. The official Nintendo magazine gave it 21 out of 100, Pocket Gamer UK gave it 30 out of 100, and Nintendo Life were much more generous, with a 40 out of 100. But that would have put this in a very negative review bracket for its meta score. Now, in terms of sales figures, the game didn't really do that well either, with the DS version specifically only shifting about 40,000 units, and this is per VG charts. So now the time has come to rank Turbo Super Stunt Squad on our worst racing games tier list. Now, for me, there was no other place this could fit in other than so bad it's good. I mean, this is a DS racing game where you race snails, and one of them's voiced by Snoop Dogg, but it's also completely broken. How could I put it in any other tier? It's just, oh god. Anyway, Turbo Super Stunt Squad definitely isn't the worst DS racer ever made, but it's definitely not good either. There's potential buried underneath all the clunky controls and flat visuals. The concept of tiny snails racing through everyday environments is genuinely quite good, but it's all squandered by poor execution, lack of polish, and absolutely no connection to what made the movie kinda work. If you're a kid who just watched the film in 2013, maybe you'd get a kick out of it for an hour or two, but for everyone else, this is just another casualty in the long line of rushed license games. And so that brings us to the end of our look at Turbo Super Stunt Squad, and with it this week's episode of Worst Racing Games. So what do you guys think of this game? Have you played it? Have you watched the film? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you have any suggestions to add to the Worst Racing Games wheel, pop that down there as well. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. A massive shout out to my Patreon subscribers for the continued support, and all I really have left to say is, thank you very much, and goodbye.